Pittsburgh Sports Line, everybody. We have a great show planned for you. It was a great day in Pittsburgh. Look, it was about 76 degrees, so you got all the suntan working on here and got the bright lights. Al Levine, the talking machine. We got Big Mike Butera, Smoking Jim Frazier, and Chip, the not the prophet with the other, we'll talk about it later, Hainer. But we have a great show for you guys, and we're going to start out with what we usually do. What's on your mind? And we always have a little difficulty with Big Mike, so I'm going to guide him. What's on your mind, Big Mike?
Before I go to that segment.
See, folks, what I mean? Call in if you have any questions about what's on his mind. 412-831-3304. And seriously, before I go into what's running around my cranium, I want to tell you about a strange occurrence I had in my hotel room. And this will be in lieu of your what's on your mind, just so you know.
Oh, that's okay. That's fine, Danny. In my hotel room on Sunday evening, I'm getting settled and comforted in and all that. Not a comforted. I'm getting settled. I'm getting comfortable and settled in my hotel room, and there was like a
thread. This guy. Where's your script at?
Well, I told you I came direct from out of time.
You know what? I'm going to have to tell the folks out there. Big Mike was on the road, and he was under a lot of duress today, and he just come in about 30 seconds before we started, because normally he's not flustered like this. He has a script that's well written out, and it looks like it's just on a legal pad that he stole from the attorney that he was talking to today. So go ahead, Mike.
Can you play that back so I can pick up where I left off?
Just move on, because you're almost losing your segment.
So there was a piece of paper folded in my room in a place that there shouldn't be. And I picked it up and I unfolded it, and it was a blurb on the Nielsen ratings, and I think we all know what the Nielsen ratings are. It was a bit of a history of the Nielsen ratings and about it. And the Nielsen ratings are things that make and that determine advertising for television shows, determine whether they're going to be a long-running show. They're based on viewership and on and on and on and on. And just to get this story short, it can make or break a show. Example, if the content of the show is weak, well, people aren't going to watch it. Therefore, the Nielsen rating is going to go down, and the show can tank. Same for, like, let's say the character base of the show. You know, what character might leave, and that loses the interest of the other people. Continuity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I found it to be quite interesting, and then it gave subsets of TV shows, like comedies, like TV sports shows, for one. I just found it interesting that it would end up in my room about ratings of TV
was there
shows.
A stamped envelope? Because I sent something to you.
Well, no, actually, it was just a folded piece of paper, and it was all about
Maybe
TV.
they listened to me and did pull it out. So.
Well, I just find it strange that a TV...
And that's the sports information that's on your mind this evening?
No, I told you, that was beforehand. I mean, if you want me to go into what's in running around in the gray matter...
Not really, but...
Up here.
Well, what's on your cranium
I'll
here
make
for
this,
the
I'll make this short, too. Sadly for me, my baseball season ended about 10 or 11 days ago when Derek Jeter fractured his ankle. I really haven't been involved to any degree of baseball, so consequently, I'm shutting down my baseball segment of the show until possibly March. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover... I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover other sports, and I want to bring it up to the panel if it's okay if I talk about soccer, because I want to get more involved in soccer. I like the shorts and the shirts that they wear, and every 3 or 4 games a guy scores a goal and they get together and they hug, and I think that's cool. And then,
all right, moving on with this segment here. Thank you very much for what's on your mind.
I got 2 other sports that I want to conquer. I want to get into rugby, because they all jump on top of one another, and then that's a big deal. And then that
what's your last one?
Lacrosse.
Okay.
Where the guys wear beehive outfits and they throw a hard ball at each other. I think that's.
Did you ever see lacrosse?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And now, thank you very much, Big Mike, for
that's
what's on your mind.
Okay.
There were so many things on your mind, I lost track.
West Virginia.
Okay. We're going to go with Smoking Jim. What's on your mind?
Hey, thanks.
I didn't get
Al
this, by the
Levine,
way.
the talking machine. Thanks, Big Mike. So on my mind, just want to bring all fans up to date. This past week, I went 1-1-1 in my picks, so I'm 7-4-1. Last Thursday, I had San Francisco, who was 7-point favorite over Seattle late in the game. They got a safety against Seattle to put it up to 9, but the coach of the year, in my opinion, Jim Harbaugh, took points off the board, which never ever happened in the National Football League history. So we got a push there. Of course, I had the Pittsburgh Steelers getting beat by the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati was up 14-3, and the Steelers battled back, showed a lot of pride, and won that particular football game. And last night, I thought I had a very easy pick. I was getting 6.5 points with the Detroit Lions, and they played a terrible, terrible game, although I got my Detroit Lion gear on today. And they got what they call a backdoor cover. They were losing 13-0 the whole game, ended up scoring to make it 13-7, and that 6.5 points got me to cover there. But what's on my mind is talking to this illustrious panel. I've been working on my big words. Does anybody know, since I'm wearing a running back gear, you know, everybody thinks this is Billy Sims, number 20, or Barry Sanders, Billy Sims, but it's actually Lem Barney. Lem Barney was cornerback with Dick LeBeau and Dick Night Train Lane, the best secondary ever in NFL history. But does anybody on the panel know who holds the single game rushing record for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
John Henry Johnson.
Close, but no cigar.
Barry Foster.
Close, but no cigar.
I don't know. You stumped me, Smoking Jim.
Chip. All right, that's a tough. That's a toughie. In 1970, Frenchie Fuqua rushed for 218 yards against Philadelphia Eagles, and they were in their all-white uniforms with the black stripe. I don't know if you guys remember those uniforms, for Chuck Noll got rid of it, but he actually ran for 190 yards. This is at Philadelphia in the first half. Do you know who held the NFL rushing record at that time?
Jim
In
Brown.
1970, Jim Brown. Jim Brown, 232 yards. It looked like the Frenchman was going to go past Jim Brown and get the record, but he only picked up another 20-some yards in the second half. But that same year, Frenchie Fuqua caught for over 100 yards in one game. Frenchie Fuqua wears number 33, and for 42 years, no other back in Pittsburgh Steelers history ever had 100 yards in receiving until Isaac Red Zone Redman did it a few weeks ago. So Frenchie Fuqua's record held for 42 years, which is amazing. But later on in the show, I'm going to tell everybody why Jonathan Dwyer is no fluke.
Wow, Smoking Jim, that's great insights. We'll wait for your fiction and fact from Smoking Jim's Almanac. That's his next feature, folks, because I'm tired of this getting all lumped into one thing. We got to separate some of that out, so we'll do that. Now let's go to Chip Hainer here. Chip, what's on your mind?
Well, thank you, Al. What's on my mind is I heard something on the radio today that absolutely perplexed me, and it was a reference to Pitt's, amazing win over the University of Buffalo on Saturday. Now, that got me thinking about the University of Pittsburgh's football program. And right now, I think it's a second-rate run program. I was listening to the head coach's press conference yesterday. He sounded like he was at a funeral. Didn't sound like he was talking about a game that his team had won. And one of the things that he elaborated on was about the lack of consistency that the running game has. Now, Pitt's got two stud running backs in Ray Graham and Russell Shell. Probably should be leading the nation in rushing, and they can't seem to be able to figure out how to block after 7 games and 8 months of practice. Okay, this is something that I just don't understand, and it leads me to believe that, what Pitt needs to do if they ever want to make themselves a first-rate or even be considered a Division 1A program, is they need to get rid of Steve Peterson. I think what he's developed there in the football program, it's a joke. I mean, they put teams on the schedule like the University of Buffalo, Gardner-Webb, Youngstown State, and teams that the Pitt should, by all rights and concerns, dominate, and they squeak out wins, they lose, or they put up a somewhat unimpressive win. I think what you need to do to make Pitt a program that people would want to come and play for is start playing some quality opponents. Now, unfortunately, with the level of talent they have on that team, they're not going to win many games. And, I still don't think that they're going to make it to become bowl eligible this year. And even if they do become bowl eligible, they ought to decline it because they're just not putting an exciting product out. It just amazes me that Pitt was once a storied program. You had Tony Dorsett, you had Mark May coming out of the University of Pitt, Danny Marino, you had Hugh Green, one of the greatest linebackers that ever played, Ricky Jackson. You got a lot of people, Bill Fralick for one, out of Penn Hills. But it doesn't make any sense the way they run the team, and the coach is probably the most boring guy I've ever heard speak. And how are you going to get him to recruit? Here in Pittsburgh, with the Whippeal, there are tons of talented athletes every year that sign letters of intent with other colleges because they want to go and play in a real program, and we can't even recruit in our own backyard. And I just think it's pathetic, and I think somebody needs to do something about that. So that's what's on my mind.
Chip, that's a lot on your mind, I'm telling you. But one of the things I did bring up when Pitt was just ready to start their season is their coach made that statement that I wish we still had more time to practice. And I had said back then that was ominous for the simple fact, what coach starting a season would say, I would love to have more time to practice with my team?
What coach after
right?
7 games in the season is going to say, oh boy, we're just not consistent in our running game? That's your bread and butter.
Right.
Well, we all know what happened. You had high octane last year, and you have no octane this year, and you had no octane last year. So those are the problems that we do have there. And it makes you wonder. And another point is look at Penn State. They had some of the worst things happen to any college for recruiting. They had players leaving. They had players not signing up. And then look what they did. They started 0-2, and look what happened. They're 5-2 right now.
The only thing they're playing for right now is pride. And apparently they have some.
And they have some talent there, too. Well, I better get to what's on my mind. Well, today I was down at Azazu Salon. I'm going to take some notes from Mike where you just throw a few things out there. And the lady who cuts my hair down at Azazu, Mary Ann, happened to mention, well, she did a very nice job also. But the other point is, she goes, hey, Al, you won't believe this, but I'm cutting one of the Steelers' hair. And I said, oh, I can't even guess. She's like, guess. I go, I have no idea, because I've seen Jack Ham there, and he's not playing right now, and a couple other guys. So anyhow, she goes, I'm cutting Sweezum's hair. And I said, how long ago did you start? Because he can't miss a field goal this year. And I think that Mary Ann is the reason. So anybody who wants to do better in sports, and I recommend all the Steelers, all the kickers in Pittsburgh, go see Mary Ann, because he hasn't missed the kick since she started cutting his hair. So there you go with something off the wall for all you people that want something different. But what's truly on my mind is Ozzie Guillen with Miami. I mean, there's a guy that was all in for Castro. And he's so arrogant with what he's done, and that just goes to show you that these guys in sports aren't really your hero. Now, he had a winning record. He won some games and had some good records there, and look what they did. They brought him in for the community in Miami, and he's talking about Castro. They're actually playing in Little Havana in Miami. So there's some arrogance that just come out, and now he got fired. He was even quoted before the end of the season, I don't deserve to be working here. I should be fired. And so should the front office, the players, and everybody else. Well, guess what? He's gone. So that's what's on my mind. And we might as well get into some of the other topics here. Chip told me he got a couple different takes on some things, so let's start winging it here, Chip.
Okay, well, let's stay with the baseball subject right now because tomorrow night the World Series starts. The Detroit Tigers are going to be facing the San Francisco Giants, and I did predict last week that the Tigers were going to sweep the Yankees in 4 games, and I thought that the Cardinals were going to beat the Giants in 7 games. Well, the series went to 7 games, and Matt Cain slammed the door real hard on the St. Louis Cardinals. St. Louis Cardinals have a murderous lineup, a lot of solid hitters on there. Matt Cain pitched a brilliant game. St. Louis really couldn't make anything happen, and the San Francisco Giants are on their way to the World Series. It was interesting, that series. It went to 7 games, and it had the last 2 World Series champions go up against one another. But I'd like to make my prediction on the World Series
Who do you
this
like?
year. I like the Detroit Tigers. I like them in 6 games. And, here's some of the reasons why I like the Detroit Tigers this year. And, if you look at what they did to the New York Yankees. Now, the New York Yankees team batting average for the series was 188, which happened to be the lowest in playoff history. But also another interesting statistic is the Tigers started each of their 4 starters, so nobody pitched 2 games. And their team ERA was 1.66 for the series. Now, that is the lowest ERA by any pitching staff in a playoff series since 1966. And here's one of the ironic things I found out about that. That was done by the Baltimore Orioles in 1966. And in 1966, they also had a Triple Crown winner playing for them. His name was Frank Robinson. The Detroit Tigers got a Triple Crown winner playing for them named Miguel Cabrera. Excuse me for tripping over his name.
That's all right.
And and I think that with Detroit's rested pitching staff being able to start Justin Verlander game 1 and in game 5, I think that's going to give them the edge because the San Francisco Giants pitched their 2 aces Sunday and Monday night. They're not going to be able to start till probably games 3 or 4, and I think by then they're going to be down by 2 games to none. And I think it's going to be a bit of an insurmountable lead because Detroit's just absolutely pitching lights out. One of the things that they've done to prepare for the series, because they've had 9 days off, is they brought their AAA team up north, and they've been playing games in Tiger Stadium because, you can only take so much batting practice swings, and, you need to face live pitching. So they played games, in preparation for the series. So they're not going into the series completely rusty or anything like that. Now, to speak to the Ozzie Guillen episode, it's kind of interesting. Ozzie Guillen is a proven winner. He went to a team with a very high payroll. Also, kind of reminds me of the Boston Red Sox. The Boston Red Sox hired a proven winner in Bobby Valentine, and they had an extremely expensive payroll. And both these guys' record for this year ended up being 69 to 93, which happened to get them both exited out the door. Ozzie Guillen's part of his problem was the comments he made about Castro, but he just rubbed everybody the wrong way. And with all the money that the Marlins spent on a new stadium, on all that payroll for all that talent, they drew 30% less people than they had expected to draw this year. And the bottom line of it was he wasn't putting fannies in the seats. Mm-hmm. And if you're not filling the coffers with the coin, you're out the door. And that's exactly what happened with Ozzie Guillen. I don't think it was so much, the Castro remark. But seriously, he had to know that was going to offend probably 2/3 of the population of Miami. But, being that as it is. But that's my little thoughts on baseball. I'm looking forward to the World Series. Justin Verlander. I'm going to throw this one over to Big Mike because he's the one that always likes to talk about old school. Justin Verlander is an old school pitcher. He comes from like the era when like Nolan Ryan pitched. This guy has pitched 238 innings this year, okay? And starters average between 30 and 34 starts each. That means he's averaging 7 innings a start. In this day and age, if the way baseball's played, if your pitcher gets you into the 5th inning, most managers are happy. He pitched the deciding game against the Oakland A's. And he went into the 9th inning, he'd already thrown 111 pitches, okay? Leland didn't even warm up his reliever. He sent him back out there. He slammed the door on them, pitched a complete game. He has no pitch limit, and this is one of my big
pet peeves.
Pet peeves, absolutely. Thanks, Alan. Is the pitch count that they hold pitchers to. In the second week of April, Leland let Verlander throw 138 pitches in a game. Okay, he pitched a complete game. Any other manager in the baseball would never allow their pitcher to pitch that many innings in the beginning of the season. But by allowing him to pitch and throw that many pitches, he's developed his arm, and he has the ability to be able to close games. He's not blowing out his arm in the 8th and 9th inning because he's able to go that limit. So he doesn't have any pitch limit. He gets better as the game goes on, and it's funny. With pitchers, that throw the ball, you got these 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. You throw those in the early innings, and they're coming in straight, okay? And as the game goes on and your arm starts to tire a little bit, you start getting late movement in the ball. And then just as the ball is getting near the plate, it may flutter a little bit, it may dive down, it may go in, but that makes the pitches more effective, and it makes the pitcher more effective. But that's what I think.
You didn't bring up the point how he throws it a little slower earlier. Then he throws a 96, 97 mile per hour fastball at the end of the game. So he's beyond old school, because those guys used to just throw the same speed the whole time.
Well,
so he's actually looked into it. If you want an insight in what he does,
in any pitcher,
and that's unreal.
Any pitcher worth his salt will mix up the speeds in his pitches. You can't just sit there and throw the ball 96 miles an hour every time, because people are going to catch up to that and they're going to start pasting it all over the field. But so I believe that Justin Verlander is going to be the difference maker when the Tigers win the World Series. 6 games, mark it.
Whoa. Okay, you were pointing down to Big Mike. What's Mike's?
Well, the old school. Mike was stumbling all over.
He's not ready for that. I'll give you my prediction then. Are you ready, Big Mike, down there?
I'm in awe. I mean, this.
All right. Well,
if Smoking and I aren't spinning yarns, I mean, this guy's that's off the chart. Pass this down. I mean, I think the only thing you may have left out, I like the comment you made about Verlander.
Mm-hmm.
Which one?
Well, about him, the fact that he pitches late into the games, et cetera, and he can pitch, as many pitches as it can take to go 9 innings when it's necessary,
or to just get the win.
Well, the whole 9 yards, and I do believe that his MVP plus Cy Young last year was well deserved, in spite of the fact I don't like the fact that a pitcher gets into an MVP conversation. Now, I really dug that conversation you were having about the 66 Orioles. Please correct me if I'm wrong. You were talking about their 4 starters, the Triple Crown Frank Robinson. Did they or did they not also sweep the Dodgers in the? Did you? I don't think you mentioned that. Or
well,
if you did,
yes,
he was waiting for you.
Me? Oh man,
yes,
thanks.
yes, they did.
It gives me some credibility.
But I mean, that's what that was my tie-in to. Little trip in the Wayback Machine.
That was really awesome. But in spite of that, now I got to take you to task on this. In spite of that, I thought you were going to segue into a 4-game sweep of the Tigers over the Giants, but you picked them in 6.
Yeah,
in spite of what the great comparison you made of 66.
Well, the fact that there was a pitching staff that was pitching lights out, and I don't believe that the series is going to be swept, because I think that the Giants absolutely deserve to be in the World Series this year. They're not going to go down without a fight, and somebody's look what they did against the Cardinals. They're down 3-1. Their pitching staff in the last 27 innings of the NLCS gave up 1 earned run. Wow. Okay, so the Cardinals scored 1 run in the last 3 games of the series that the Giants won. That tells me that they've got a little stick in their bats.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm not going to I don't think they're not like the Yankees were this year. They didn't go in a slump, because the Yankees really didn't bat well in the first series that they were in. I mean, the Yankees, they kind of like stumbled towards the end, but
collectively.
But the Giants are a hot team, and that kid Scudero that won the MVP for the NLCS, I mean, he's batting almost 500. The kid's hot.
That's pretty good. Here's a stat you missed on Verlander. He's 0 for 33. It's the first time in history that a guy has batted 33 times, not been on base at all, not gotten walked or hit by a pitch. So there you go. There's a record there for
and I hope he
a little
extends
stat.
it.
Well, exactly, because that means he's pitching a whole game, and that's what Chip's point is. Big Mike, what do you think with the World Series? We'll get some predictions up here.
Well, I just wanted to mention, I think I'm always able to be corrected. I think that Mariano Rivera is 1 for 1 in his major league career.
That's 1,000.
Well, it could be.
I was
one
talking
for
0.
1.
Could be.
0.
My prediction for the World Series, boy. I
like
really have none. It's a crapshoot, as all short series are, and
Was that your stomach, Big Mike?
I am going for pizza again later. No, that's.
All right, he got his pick here, there, folks. Smoking Jim, what do you think for the World Series? What's your opinion? That's what you told me. So.
Oh, okay.
You said it again, so we just moved on. Thanks.
Well, as you guys know, I'm a big Jim Leyland fan, and so my heart goes with Detroit, and but it's almost impossible to close out San Francisco Giants this year. I mean, like Chip said, I mean, when the backs are against the wall and close out games, Man, I tell you what, they're never out of it. But I'm looking for Detroit. But it preps a question for me to go back in the season, and maybe Chip and Big Mike and Al are right. The Pirates aren't that far away, because I remember when the Pirates was beating on Detroit. I remember Jim Leland was upset because he said before the game, "Do not let Andrew McCutchen beat you." And that's what really happened. So I thought the Pirates were just as good as Detroit early on in the season.
Yeah, and that was really what the Pirates' problem was. I mean, I know an illustrious friend of ours has his thoughts, and God bless you, Mike. But the Pirates, had a decent enough starting nine. They didn't have any depth, and when the injury bug hit them, and specifically to Neil Walker, they really just couldn't overcome that. And I don't think that they had the depth, and I think that's one of the things that they really got to work hard on doing is, having more. You need 25 guys, and you need 25 guys that can contribute. And I don't know if they're going to find the answer to that in the minor league system, if they have anybody that's coming up that we haven't heard of, or if they're going to do that via free agency. But they don't have to spend tons of money to do that. But I don't want to get too far into the Pirates.
We're not going to get into the Pirates right now. That'll be another segment.
February.
If it gets a little slow.
February, we'll be making my predictions for the season.
We might mention some of that, but I'll get my prediction in. I'll jump on that bandwagon. I'm a Jimmy Leland fan. I've told you a couple stories about meeting him, but I like how he coaches. I like how at 67 he doesn't really give a damn. They were picking on him earlier in the year in Detroit. You hear about him picking on our manager here. I forget his name, but they're talking bad about him and getting rid of him. Even I've mentioned it. But Leland, they were talking about he should go. How's he ever going to win a World Series? And look what happened. He goes, let's go at the end of the season and see what 162 games does. So there's a class act. There's a winning coach. Whether one of our illustrious members of the panel said he's a quitter, sure he quit. But he's a winner on top of being a quitter. So, I mean, that's why I'm putting 7 games. It'll go to the wire. And San Francisco will get beat in the 7th game by Detroit.
And Al, don't they have another former manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates?
2.
Yes, there's
they
2
got 2?
on there.
Lloyd
The bench
McClendon
coach.
and
Gene Lamont.
Gene Lamont.
Wow.
His old staff from Pittsburgh. He took them to Miami.
He's like Bill
He took them to
Cowher.
Miami and won the World Series with the Florida Marlins.
Smoking Jim.
And
He's
he's
like
taken
your,
them to Detroit, and they've taken them to 2 World Series now. It's
Smoking
his
Jim.
time.
He's like your hero, Bill Cowher. He developed a lot of other players or managers and coaches that become managers. Not successful, but they come back to him when he's successful and goes to another town. So he surrounds himself with them. Good people.
I've got another amusing story. This is on the football note because, we've just got done talking baseball. It is football season. Steelers had a big win on Sunday night. But I heard something absolutely amusing that happened in the New Orleans Saints Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, and it's early in the 4th quarter, okay? So it's 4th down, and the Saints go out, trot out their kicker. They're going to kick a field goal. They're already up by 7 points, okay? So they go to line up for the field goal, and Greg Schiano, the coach of the Tampa Bay Bucs. This is the same Greg Schiano who, when Tom Coughlin was trying to take a knee and run the clock out, sent his troops in to go and hit Eli. So he comes up with this brilliant idea, and he has all 11 men on the defense, just as they're getting ready to snap the ball, to scream at the top of their lungs at the kicker to miss the kick. Every referee on the field threw a flag. It was a 15-yard penalty, okay? And they got a first down and subsequently scored a touchdown that won the game. Now, this guy is a really class act. I mean, this is like midget league football stuff. This is the NFL. And it's funny that, because we had the real refs in there, not the replacements, that there is a rule against doing that. And that they called it correctly.
It makes sense because you guys may forget the term. Maybe Big Mike knows it, but they used to call stuff like that Bush League.
No.
Think about it. Because
but it was brilliant. I mean, can you think, instead of teaching them technique or sending a guy in to pick or teaching them how to block a kick, we're going to say boo.
And you know that in basketball. What do? That's a boo defense, right? When they're yelling at the
they
guy.
were wearing their creamsicle colored jerseys. I guess they look like jack-o'-lanterns.
What happened?
I didn't know there was a rule against that.
What happened? Did the snap take place?
No, I don't believe that the snap actually took place because the
They
refs,
threw the
the
flag.
refs,
Flag,
every,
as was-
but not just one. Every ref on the field threw the flag.
Okay, let me ask you
They were
this.
That's
yelling, "Your
why
mom wears army boots."
There was so much laundry on the field, they had to go get it washed.
Isn't
They need to go to
there?
the cleaners, Mike. Come on.
You know, that's the recipe for success, and I think that that's something they should start teaching. You know, the young children when they're lesson.
Aren't
Sarcasm's running wild here.
since you're looking at me, you listen to me.
We're all looking at you.
Isn't there a captain for offense, defense, special teams, etc.?
Yes, sir.
Shouldn't the captain of the special teams have a say with? I mean, what's he a captain for? He's got to be more than just a
He takes
captain.
orders from the head coach.
Who's
But
in
you don't-
charge?
but you- I
Who's
hear-
in charge, Mike?
But geez,
Like
oh
when
man.
you're on a film set, who's in
Do I
charge?
defer to you because you're the head of this panel?
No,
And when you,
never.
I don't.
Never.
Replay.
It's unbelievable.
I think.
Watch us
that-
on YouTube.
I always do. I think the special teams captain should have said, "Coach, this is way off the
Yeah,
charts."
but guess what? He's looking. He gets his paycheck stamped, and he's out looking for a job on Monday.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's life in the NFL.
But
know,
you
this-
saw what you just told me what the outcome of that was.
Maybe they
Flags
didn't
from
know.
there.
Yeah, but you don't have the option of defying your coach in the middle
Not
of a game.
fine. I mean, just
I'm just saying.
Do you ever play sports, Big Mike?
never.
Okay, that might be why.
Okay.
But you know,
never had a
let's
job
get back
either.
to
So,
Jim's.
but I am married.
You know,
God
as I
bless you.
picked up Jonathan Dwyer from my fantasy football team this weekend, I was
Right.
in need of a running back because Jones Drew was out with a broken foot or something
Yes,
like that.
he-
Oh, we might have to
He's
go to
out,
his.
he's out for a few weeks.
We
So
might have to get
Jonathan
his fiction
Dwyer.
factor.
Why is he not? Why is he the real deal?
Hold it. Let's go to the
Yeah.
fiction and fact
glad.
from Smoking Jim's
Kinda
Almanac.
robbing you a softball.
Yeah.
You know, I
He did it. He
'cause I
served
would've-
it up.
I would have forgotten all about it.
We tried to get you back in the game here.
Back when 2010 draft, when I was in the war room with the Steelers and
Were you
battling,
eating steak early, or
You know what, man?
tell the
all
truth?
all black cooks, brother. That's it.
Okay.
Steaks and omelets, man. They make it. They make it tailor made for me, man. But you know, in one of the mock drafts that I was looking at when we was doing the pre
On the
draft.
chalkboard? The
Well,
chalkboard
no,
stuff?
these are mock drafts that they get from different bureaus that. And I'm looking through them, and this is kind of the pre-draft, process that we go through, and I'm looking through it, and Jonathan Dwyer, most of the pre-draft mock drafts had him going the 11th pick overall by the San Diego Chargers.
Wow.
So when Dwyer slipped, he was only a junior coming out of Georgia Tech. He ran for back-to-back 100-yard seasons. Now he was a fullback in the option. They ran the option there. So that might have been the reason why he slipped. So him slipping all the way down to the 6th round. And at that time, I was a little bit more high on, although I liked Dwyer, but I wanted the Steelers to get LeGarrette Blount. But I was pushing for Antonio Brown, who they finally had 3 picks in the 6th round that year. End up getting Dwyer and Antonio Brown with the 3rd pick of the 6th round. But Dwyer is no fluke. I mean, this is a guy that was supposedly come out after his junior year. He was supposed to go 11th pick overall in the 1st round of San Diego Chargers. So the Steelers might have got a steal there.
Well, I think some of the things that have held him back. They said that the last couple of years that he's come into training camp a little overweight, a little out of shape, and I hope that the production that he had the other night, that he's getting the message that this kid's got a world of talent, and I think he could be the 1-2 punch that the Steelers need. You've got Rashard Mendenhall, you've got Red Zone Redmond who does who does his thing, but he's a completely different type of a runner from Mendenhall. Mendenhall is your breakaway back. He's the guy that can take it for the length of the field on any given down, but you get into the 3rd and 4th quarters, like when Jerome Bettis used to just hammer people and they'd beat them into submission. And if the offensive line can continue to block the way they blocked the Bengals on in the second half on Sunday night, the Steelers could turn a few heads this year, because the AFC is completely wide open.
3
After
winning
the
teams.
Houston Texans,
Only 3.
after the Houston Texans, the Ravens, their defense is banged up, and they haven't been able to stop the run all year. They couldn't stop Dallas from running against them, you know. So, I mean, you know, anything can happen. This is the year of parity in the AFC.
Well, there's a couple of things with Dwyer. One, and you were right, Chip, he came in grossly overweight and out of shape. But the main thing was maturity. Very immature kid, very young kid. Right now, he's younger than, going into his third year, he is younger than Chris Rainey, who is a rookie. So he's a young, very young kid. He was very immature, but and I got to give the Steelers credit because he was on the bubble quite a few times. They were going to cut him, and they hung in there with him. It's paying off dividends.
They cut Clay,
Yeah.
and they kept him.
Yeah.
And Clay was, was looking pretty nice through last year when he did play.
Well, that's another steal that the Steelers got. Don't forget Clay's junior year at Wisconsin. He was the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year. Now, he didn't do.
Didn't he get hurt his senior year?
Yeah, he got hurt in his senior year. Same thing that happened with Monty Ball, who I said should have came out after his junior year and became a multi-millionaire, looking more like a walk-on free agent right now. But, I tell you what, the Pittsburgh Steelers have some good options in the running game. And me and Chip was talking yesterday that the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have a lot of talent, but they do have great weapons in the running game. If they really turn their attention to the running game and start mixing it up with Mendenhall, Redmond, find a way to get the ball to Rainey and Dwyer, I tell you what, you could see some special things against the two games against Cleveland Browns.
Speaking of Rainey, who in their right mind would have thought he got handed the ball on the 11-yard line and runs in for a touchdown as Legursky's blocking like a superstar?
Wow.
I mean, he ran right up the middle. And what's he weigh? About $150?
Well, don't act like they was going against the Trojan Army, in Rome. The Cincinnati Bengals lost 3 games in a row. Cincinnati Bengals is turning into the Cincinnati Bengals. So let's see what happens this week.
The Cincinnati
Good
Bengals
point.
have been afflicted by the disease. They follow one good season with about 4 or 5 bad ones. But that gives them nice high draft picks that they seem to waste.
And it helps us because we got to try to win 2 in a row. And the way I predicted they would win was Cincinnati. A lot of guys were against me on that one. And I'm going to predict they beat Washington this week.
Well, if I ever decide to go, because I'm self-employed, but if I ever decide to go back into the job market, I'm going to Cincinnati because they got to have the best affirmative action in the history of this country. Marvin Lewis, 11 seasons, only 2 winning seasons, and he still got a job. And I tell you what, I'm moving to Cincinnati. KRP in Cincinnati.
Smoking Jim, what's your opinion on some of those questionable calls he made towards the end of the game when he's disputing it? I mean, that just holds his tradition that he shouldn't be a coach.
Well,
right?
I tell you,
we talked about it last night, but maybe you want to bring that out for the people that missed it last night.
Well, I got to tell you what, I got to be very, very careful. Everybody knows I don't like Marvin Lewis. There's
a couple might be listening.
I have a long history with Marvin Lewis, but I am one of his daughter-in-law, or let me say his sister-in-law, is a good friend of the show and a very beautiful young lady. And I don't want to get on the wrong side of her because she is gorgeous. And Miss Robin's brother is married to Marvin Lewis's sister.
I remember hearing that.
So Miss Marvin Lewis is they all went to the same church, all went to the same high school.
Well, we want you to still.
Fort Cherry never won the WPIL championship, but they sure have a lot of great coaches. Marty Schottenheimer, Marvin Lewis, and the first black player to ever play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Ray Kemp, was from that area. And the Green Bay Packers' 4th all-time leading receiver when he got thrown out of the league by Holmgren was Perry Kemp. For a while there was the other receiver with Shannon Sharp. So there's a great history out there in Fort Cherry, just not winning anything.
Well, getting back to the Steelers, they won the game, and Alan made this statement last night, the Steelers win a game and everybody's happy because the Steelers are going back to the Super Bowl. But they're not going to be going back to any Super Bowls anytime soon if they don't see some improvement in a couple of areas of the game. Mike Wallace has to learn how to catch the ball again. He had 8 catches on Sunday night, but he probably dropped 4 balls that would have been game-changing
Wait, one
plays.
wasn't his fault. It was tipped.
You know what? I don't care. If it, I don't care. I don't care if the ball's tipped or not. If it hits you in the hands as a professional football player, you should catch it. Okay? Point closed. And the second thing is the special teams. Now, the Steelers continue to get penalized in the special teams, and it keeps on robbing Antonio Brown of all these great returns that he has, and that begs me to ask the question, how could the Steelers have such a horrific special teams? And who was their special teams coach, A? B, why did Al Everest get fired in August? Does anybody have any idea why that happened? And could he be doing any worse of a job than whoever's in there right now? They need to fix that fast because, you need to be strong on all 3 sides of the ball, offense, defense, special teams. The Harbaugh brothers learned that last year in the playoffs. The Ravens had it blow up on them against the Patriots, and the 49ers had it happen to them against the Giants, So that can make a big, big difference, and they need to fix that like yesterday.
I don't know how quick they're going to fix it unless they sit down a lot of players and play a lot of the regulars.
Well, and
they're not going to do that.
Here's what the problem is. There's too many guys that are injured that they don't have enough fresh, warm bodies to get out there. But Tomlin said today that as soon as he does have other options, there's going to be guys that are standing on the sideline holding their helmets watching the game.
Well, Al Everest turned the special teams was poor before Al Everest got here. He turned them around last year. Antonio Brown went to the Pro Bowl. 1,000 yards receiving, 1,000 yards in kick returns. Right now, the special team coach is famous Amos Jones. May be a terrible special team coach, but I bet you can make some good cookies.
Is there still a taxi squad in pro football?
Well, they call it the practice squad now.
But aren't those guys like so hungry to play that they'll do special teams suicidal service?
Especially that they're getting minimum wage.
Yeah, okay.
What about $250,000?
Yeah, that's all relative. But
a year,
aren't those the guys that would get on that special team and just go nuts and play to whatever?
Yeah, but they're causing penalties when they go nuts, Big Mike.
but
they're hitting guys in the back every play.
So the taxi squad or whatever they're called are now on the special teams.
No.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
The simplest things that they teach a guy on special teams is if you can read the opposing player's name on the back of his jersey, don't block him. Okay? But they seem to have forgotten that.
Hold it. Smoke and Jim will tell you, these guys might be college educated, but they didn't go to a class. So when you say they can read the name on the back of the jersey, that is debatable using the scout's opinion there.
Well, I always say, football's the easiest game ever. They're making it too complicated. Believe me, when they came up with the term dumb jock, they was talking about football players. So don't make it complicated. Keep it simple. Football is blocking and tackling. You win the football games in the trenches, move the guy off the ball, run the football 6, 7, 8, 9 yards a game, wear that other defense down, and then you can do everything you want. You can pass or run.
Well, speaking of your blocking and tackling, I noticed Willie Colon was doing both. And he didn't get called, just so you know. I mean, I was watching him. It was like a highlight.
He should be the nose guard. There's an opening. There's a Samoan opening at nose guard. Willie Colon want to go both ways.
I'm playing your straight man here, but I mean, I watched him because I couldn't help it. They kept highlighting and focusing on Willie Colon. One play's holding a guy, his arms up like this, pushing him out of the way. The runner goes right by. Then another play's pounding on a guy on the ground. The week before, he got flagged almost on every play. So, I mean, it makes you wonder on what's going on. Not that I believe in too many conspiracies, but that makes me wonder, just for a second.
It's probably, we beat up the Steelers pretty good.
Not yet. I'm still saying they're going to win. Wait a second.
One other thing about local football, I was listening to some comments that the head coach at West Virginia made about his team today. And I think Dana Holgorsen is, we'll call him Stepping Stone Dana Holgorsen because he's using West Virginia as a stepping stone.
Yes, sir.
Apparently, he's got ideas of bigger and better things for himself. He makes a comment to his team that they need to grow up, okay? That it's not his fault that they got 128 points scored on them in the last 2 weeks and they've scored 28 themselves, okay? You know, the head coach is supposed to take responsibility for his team. Everybody is accountable to the head coach. And, you know, Dana Holgorsen hired the defensive coordinator for the West Virginia Mountaineers. And how he lets this guy keep his job week after week when they haven't tackled anybody since September, I don't know. But, I mean, he threw his players under the bus. And, I mean, how are you going to get players to play for you when you're going to sit there and degrade them like that and telling the national media that your team needs to grow up? I mean, these are college kids. You're supposed to be teaching them. You're supposed to be leading by example. You're supposed to teaching them about accountability. And, you know, here you are. Well, hey, it's not my fault. I'm a genius. You know, I just don't get that. And
Chip,
why would anybody want to send their kid to play for him?
Right.
Chip, I'll give you one other name, Todd Graham. There's another guy,
I like
Tino
Todd.
Sansera.
I like Todd.
You might like him because your buddy's coaching out there. He's another phony. He's a used car salesman. Look at Tino Sansera last year had his best game, and he called it an average game. How is that going to motivate anybody? And you saw what happened. The players had no respect before the end of the year. Same type of thing. Now look at him, and where's he at? Out in the desert?
Arizona
He
State.
started great. What's going on out there?
Make a correction. My buddy's at Arizona, not Arizona
Oh, I'm
State.
sorry.
That's a rivalry. He's
Yeah,
with
he's
Rich
with
Rodriguez.
Rich Rodriguez.
Another guy that I
I
like.
stand corrected. I was on a rant. I was on a little rant there. Sorry, buddy. No offense to your buddy. I apologize. Hope we get to meet him soon.
Well, here's my believe it or not, my college game dead air fill-in, because you've mentioned this twice now. You mentioned about Pitt's program, and now you just mentioned if the guy throws his team under the bus, how do you get recruits? Well, my notation that I took earlier on was, since in the National Football League, or in actually almost every sport with the exception of baseball, you can have parity by virtue of good drafting, and the way you get draft picks is because of your poor performance in the preceding years. So, but that doesn't happen in collegiate football. So how does Pitt get out of this rut if they have a bad program, they don't win? How do they get recruits?
Educate 'em a little
Well,
bit.
here's what they could have done.
That's
I
what
mean,
I'm
they could have developed a team that could actually win the Big East, and then move to another conference, thinking that, okay, we've conquered this territory, we're going to conquer new ground. But no, they can't even win a game in the Big East, and they're going to the ACC. You know, and they're not. How many games are these kids going to see on national TV? I tell you one thing that Dana Holgorsen did that was a smart move. Going to the Big 12. I mean, the Big 12's got a lot of teams that get a lot of national exposure, and these kids, they may not be able to play in front of their mom and dad, but they sure as heck can watch them on national TV.
Right.
You know, Saturday night. I mean, you know, you could.
So are you?
Some of the kids' parents got to see their kids get their
In other
tails
words-
waxed on national TV.
Hi, Mom.
Here, Big Mike, just to explain it to you in layman's terms like we are, Pitt's not going to get better.
That's a possibility. But
No, that's
now
a-
you got me thinking. Another thing is
What is it now? Did you write this down?
no, this
is
just,
unscripted?
It's just yeah.
Okay,
this just
thank
came
you.
up from
It's just in.
yeah, just did.
Can you show us
The
what's
national,
on that sheet?
yeah, sure.
Okay.
The national TV thing. Now, are you telling me the kids will go to a football program because they're on TV, or because they recognize the fact that a school that now they're aware of Pitt because it was on TV? So are they going to the school because they want to get on TV, or because they became aware of the team that is on TV?
Well, one thing Chip said earlier that made a lot of sense is that, one, you guys don't like Todd Graham, but Todd Graham could have been a heck of a recruiter. Exciting, he's a great salesman. Pitt don't have that right now. Chris couldn't. He couldn't keep a lemonade stand going in the summertime. This guy cannot. You know, if he was manure, he couldn't draw flies, and that's the problem. And that's the problem right now. You got to have a guy who can go into a home and get recruits. Even a guy like Woody, not Woody Hayes. Yeah, Woody Hayes for Ohio State. You got to have, like, you can't. Everybody can't be Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz can recruit anybody.
Everyone.
Woody Hayes never recruited a kid in his life. He used to recruit the parents. And that was his philosophy, because if the parents say you're going to Ohio State, you're going to Ohio State. He goes to Jack Tatum's house, and Jack Tatum didn't even know he was there. Jack Tatum came in. Woody Hayes never even spoke to him. He recruited his parents, and his parents says, Jack Tatum, you're going to Ohio State, and paralyze half the Big Ten.
Well, Paul Chryst may be a good X and O's guy, but as far as having charisma, and I think that's something that a head football coach absolutely needs, he's severely lacking in it.
Are you sure he's an X and O guy?
It's not looking that way.
Because the coach that Wisconsin was a great team way before the coach from right up here in Burgerstown, that's the athletic director there for Wisconsin, turned that program around. I can't think of his name, that was there for years.
Barry Alvarez?
Barry Alvarez. That Wisconsin program's been great for years.
He was the offensive coordinator, and they had a solid offense year in and year out. They were always
solid
contended
before he
for
got there.
Well,
Oh, he didn't screw it
point
up.
taken.
Yeah.
Point taken.
I'm just saying, I'm not seeing the X and the O's. When you're high-fiving your guys when they're coming off the field with a 14-6 small lead against Buffalo, I think you should be snatching some of them by the face mask.
The lead, I think the number of points they beat Buffalo by was about the same as the attendance at the game.
Yeah, did it look like a high school game or what?
Yes, it did. There was
Nobody
hardly
was there.
anybody there.
So they had 100, they had tons of fans disguised as empty seats. And I know the weather gets bad in Buffalo, but the Bills seem to put fresh, warm bodies in the stadium.
It's a little different caliber of game, though. When you got Pitt traveling around like they are, you're not going to draw
They're
them.
talking now about Dave Wannstedt and his lack of defense up there. Dave Wannstedt was known.
Did he go to the game? He's the coordinator of Buffalo. Was he at the game?
I don't know.
He didn't want to learn anything like that. He
I
already knows that.
I think he may be person non grata with the University of Pittsburgh. I think he's a little upset with them.
With good reason. Hey, one thing we didn't bring up tonight, but we were talking last night a little bit on our show at Level 20 there, and thanks again to Tracy and Cullen for letting us have a great show there at Level 20. We'll see you guys there next week.
And I'll be getting my fries again next week.
And Smoke and Jim will get a regular order of fries. I'm putting that on the record. So we get the regular order, not the giant order, as you heard last night, and I witnessed that, where you declined so you could buy another nice lady, Bella Lisa, who showed up. And I saw you bought her dinner there.
I sure did.
And Batman left the building very early that night. So, but it was nice. It was a good show. But we did bring up about the NHL, and Chip and I have had a couple discussions about it. And when you look at what the owners offered, 50-50, then the players gave 3 offers, and then there's a deadline. Well, Chip and I had a couple discussions about who would blink, and I have a little bit of experience negotiating, and my good friend Chief was there last night. And he verified that I've done a little bit of negotiating in the past and have a couple insights. And my point of this was both sides are polarized, as I've said before. They made 50-50, which they come down 7 points on the percentage. The players actually gave a 50-50 in their last offer with all the same salaries, not losing any money, which would be a sticking point. And sure enough, there's no reply, Chip.
No,
and the deadline is on the 25th.
Thursday.
Yes.
The deadline
The
is
season will be canceled if they both stay with their same positions.
the difference between the players.
Really?
50.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has the potential for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The players' 50-50 was actually a 50-50 split. The owners' 50-50 split was 50-50 plus a salary reduction for all these guys
Pay
that
cuts,
signed
right.
$100 million contracts this summer. These guys, the ink hasn't even dried on the $100 million contract they signed, and the owners are already trying to figure out a way of getting out of paying them. Now, if I was a player and I had a contract in my hand, I'm not giving up any of that money. You agreed to it. I got a contract. This is binding.
And that's part of what we talked about is some of the owners make it, okay, they lost $100 million during the preseason. Well, come on, they already took all the tickets and revenue. They have all the revenue. That's why they won an 82-game season. They don't want to refund the poor people out that can barely afford the tickets. So that's what's going on. And then they put the media they use the media to get the word out, so then you're trying to get against the players. So, I mean, it's a big game.
So, and then today I heard a report that the general managers of the teams, without the knowledge of the NHL Players Association, started contacting the players. Okay,
Which are not
because
supposed
the
to.
owners are not allowed to contact. So I don't know what's going on and how that, the legality of all that and how that works out. But how is it you can't get these both sides in the same room negotiating?
I'll give you another
But you
reason.
can send the GMs out to go talk to the players
Here.
to work behind the union's back.
Here, Chip, I'll tell you what they're trying to do.
Break the union.
Exactly, and here's what's going to happen. They're not going to break the union because that's where they've made the money. The elite players make all the money. We all know that. And people dream. Why do they go play these sports? Because they dream. They hope to be that player, that $100 million player. So that's why the guys that are only making $200,000, $500,000, $1 million, they believe that they can get there someday. They're not going to break the union.
No.
And the owners, they want to sign these big contracts. People aren't going to go to the game. A lot of us people that are fringe hockey fans, we're not going to pay any money to go see the games.
And personally, I believe right now the owners are cutting off their nose to spite their face. I think what the owners are doing by locking out the players and actually not negotiating in goodwill is they're doing irreparable damage to the sport. And if they ever want to get what the NFL and Major League Baseball have, in which is these billion-dollar television contracts, which make everything possible for those other sports, the NHL is never going to get that, and subsequently they're going to be a second-rate organization as long as they exist.
And they've been that. The ESPN, when they were showing all these games from Russia, look what they did. They're antagonizing the fans here because they won't put the game on ESPN.
Well, you know what? Until the fans actually stand up and take a stand and say, you know what, we're not putting up with any of your crap. It's not because we're like lambs being led to the slaughter. The minute they the minute they sign, we're going to flock back to the arenas. And life is going to be good. And if you really want to send a message to these people, if they ever do come to an agreement, don't go to the games. Don't spend the money. Don't buy the jerseys. Teach them a lesson, okay? Because, that's the only thing that you can do. But unfortunately,
it's not going to happen.
People are not
Chip.
going to do that.
And we're starting to run out of time, and I wanted to hear if Smoking Jim has any picks that we can bet the house on again. I've only lost 3 houses, and I won 4 of them back. So I don't mind. I'm ahead of the game staying with you. So if you can give me one, maybe not bet the house, but what do you think here, my friend?
Everybody come out the level 20 and get the Monday night pick.
I'm looking. What's Thursday night? Did you research anything
Who's
Thursday
playing
night?
Thursday
Minnesota and Tampa.
Didn't research.
Okay, then we won't put you on the spot because
Josh,
I don't know the point spread on that.
All I can say is boo on this Tampa Bay special.
Greg,
Well, then let's go to one of your favorite subjects, Gateway. What's going to happen here? We're getting near the playoffs, and we got to at least cover that before we end here in the next minute and a half.
Well, when I was in high school at Gateway, the only school that Pete Annamarino would run the score up on, for some reason, he did not like the school, and Gateway is going to visit this week, so look for punishment and blood. That's McKeesport Tigers. Gateway and McKeesport don't like McKeesport. McKeesport don't like Gateway, and look for Gateway to run up the score on McKeesport at McKeesport on senior night.
Yeah, and that's because McKeesport's down at the bottom of the hill, and they've been looking up at Gateway their whole lives. To get to McKeesport from Gateway, you're going downhill the whole way.
I still have family from McKeesport there. My mother's family grew up there. I spent many a
You
year
have my condolences.
in McKeesport there. My uncle was a teacher there for many years
You
at
got
McKeesport.
family everywhere. Short Valley, McKeesport. You got everywhere but Monroeville.
Well, we got some Monroeville
Okay,
connections
there you
there.
go.
Because none of them can play football, so they didn't get recruited.
Well, I hope you liked the show. We had Big Mike Butero who just come in 10 seconds before the show started. He was unscripted almost totally. You always have Smoking Jim Frazier with his insights and his special fiction and fact from Smoking Jim's Almanac. And you get Chip with insights on baseball, football, and whatever comes up on his mind or he's read.
Useless information.
And I have to say goodnight. This is Al Levine, the Talking Machine. It's a pleasure having you as our fans watching our show.
once you figure out how to speak your kids' language, well, you don't really have to say much at all. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.